All right. Well, according to this little baby, we are going out live to Mr. and Ms. Middle America and all the ships at sea. It does sound a little echoey to me, but sound okay to you?
I think it sounds normal to me. I
It's
think that there's a
it's
little delay in these headphones.
okay. All right. Well, we'll take it at face value. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Madison. I know they locked me in a closet here. Parker's closet. He's
Welcome to my
over.
closet.
He's over there. So we think we've got everything working fine. You can throw a good morning in the comments if we sound good. A good morning in the comments if we don't sound good. Either way, we'll be pleased to have a little input from everybody as we do our show today and tomorrow from Madison. And then Friday, we take the show on the road a little bit further. So, coming up on the program for today, we will be talking about one of the candidates for governor and what we know about him, and more importantly, what we don't know about him yet, even after all of the digging that an investigative reporter has been trying to do about this. We'll ask ourselves the question, who is Bill Berrien? Uh, that's coming up. We'll also talk about Tom Tiffany and his continued teasing of a potential run for governor and why there is probably not much to that. We'll talk to officials from the Chippewa Falls School District, which is weird because now I'm not in Chippewa Falls, but we will be talking about declining enrollment and the way that it has an impact on local school districts like Chippewa. It's not a dollar for dollar reduction when your enrollment goes down and you lose so much money in state funding. It has a different kind of impact. What I've said before about how you can lose 5 students, but you're still taking the same school bus and you're still covering the same ground and gas still costs the same per gallon. So we'll talk a bit more about that as well. Let's see, we'll in our first hour, if you missed our 8 o'clock hour yesterday, hear a bit from Dan Shafer on nonpartisan redistricting. We'll talk about the Speaker of the House sending Congress home early in order to continue the cover up of the Epstein files. And we'll visit with Earl Ingram, Melissa Baldoff, and much more, all coming up at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network. And right here as well. We will see you soon. All right, let's see if that works. I definitely still hear some kind of an echo or
Yeah.
something there, so
Okay.
we'll see. You sound perfect, so
Cool.
we'll
Okay.
we'll see if we get any comments on it once we get going.
All right.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Minnesota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Wednesday morning, July 23rd, 2025, and it's a beautiful morning to have you here in Madison, from wherever you're spending your mornings listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, or listening or watching us on all the other platforms that we have for you. Thanks for starting your day right here. I've got a question for you about Madison traffic. The belt line that runs, around the bottom of the metro area here. Is that kind of like the Golden Gate Bridge, in the sense that the construction just kind of works its way down, and by the time you think it's all done, they just go back, then they start over again? Because I gotta say, I haven't missed that. I haven't missed you, Madison Road Construction. We're here in Madison Studio A2, and that's Parker Olson, who produces this fine shindig, and has guided me into the opposite end of the broom closet over here. If you folks watching on social media go, Pat, you appear to be in solitary confinement. Why, yes. Is there nothing that could hang on a wall, a picture of Luke? No. I moved my head to show you. There's the clock.
We do have
That's the cheat sheet to know when to go to commercial break. Mr. Olson, how are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you
in
too.
person.
I didn't know how tall you were.
I didn't know you had glasses.
I thought you were a dwarf. I thought you were small.
I thought you were bald. I mean, it's just
it's been a toupee the whole time.
Exactly.
I take it off and put it back on in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are at the Civic Media Global HQ. A lot of the hosts and folks are going to be getting together today. So, in fact, a lot of your favorite hosts will be gone. Because after this show ends, we're all going out for coffee and talking about the state of the world and radio and how we make you happy with things that we discuss on local radio all across Wisconsin. So we'll talk a bit first about a candidate for governor, Bill Berrien, who's already running some ads in the state. And yet one investigative reporter has tried to, flush out more of his story, and there's still some gaps in there. So we'll ask, who is Bill Berrien, coming up in the program. Now, this show happens to be hosted as well by a former legislator who has seen pretty much all the tricks. And so I'm going to talk to you a bit about Congressman Tom Tiffany, continuing to tease a potential run for governor, despite a lack of statewide appeal. And I'll tell you what the trick is behind it, which is not to say he's definitely not running for governor, but there's a reason why I suspect that he might not be, because of something that we see all the time here. If you missed it in our 8 o'clock hour yesterday, we talked to Dan Shafer, and we'll play some of that back this hour about the new push for permanent nonpartisan redistricting after the 2030 census here in Wisconsin. We'll talk about how the Speaker of the House chose to send members of Congress home early in order to cover up any release of the Epstein files. But won't that just put more heat on President Trump? We'll talk about the potential hazards, and the newest one that we've learned about, a member of his administration going to the prison in Tallahassee to meet with Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. There's nothing good could happen, could come from that. In our homeroom segment, we're going to be talking about declining enrollment. And when enrollment goes down, there's this reduction in state aid. And at first blush, you might think, well, that makes sense. Fewer kids, fewer state dollars. However, there are certain fixed expenses for schools that stay the same. By and large, if you only lose a handful of kids, but you've already lost that handful of state dollars. So we'll talk to the business manager and a school board member up in Chippewa Falls. Will join us as I'm down here in Madison today. What else? It's been 5 years since the passing of civil rights leader and former Congressman John Lewis. His spirit still calls us to get into what he called good trouble in the fight for voting rights, dignity, and justice for all. Earl Ingram's new Civic Media podcast asks how we carry that legacy forward, from civic engagement to mobilizing for change, all to ensure that Wisconsin stands on the right side of history. Along the way, feel free to join us in the comment sections here. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, we'd love to get your questions, your comments. You can also use the Civic Media app to send us a text as well. Because I'm not at the palatial Lake Wissota studios where I have, 4 computer screens at once, I may not see the text messages right away, but we'll get to them. Parker, you see them over there too, though. Do you see the text messages?
I see a message from Jim from Brookfield.
Okay. Oh, hi, Jim.
Yeah, he says there was a collective sigh of disappointment over the Milwaukee area last night. There may have been a sigh of relief from George Webb franchise owners.
I don't think they minded the publicity. And Roger puts on Facebook, well, it was fun while it lasted. A 1-0 game is great if you win, but a 1-0 game stings if you lose it. And says the show is sounding great at his end, as we wondered if our technical setup was all working
Good
fine.
to know. Thank you, sir.
Seems to be fine. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, that gets us to the Brewers.
Yeah,
They lost.
they did.
1-0.
You know what sucks is
what is it, Parker?
had they lost last night,
yeah,
I wouldn't have cared at all.
Yeah.
It'd have been like,
okay.
It is literally the prospect of free hamburgers that I wasn't gonna get.
Yeah.
That makes me sad.
I was gonna say there's no George Webb around here in Madison anyplace. For folks who might have missed it because they were out west, look, the thing is the Brewers bats sometimes they come and they go. And recall that I mentioned 2 days ago, or I mentioned yesterday that the game 2 days ago, the Seattle pitcher took a no-hitter into the 6th inning, I believe it was. Well, again, last night you had Seattle's pitcher, what's his name? Logan Gilbert. He carried a perfect game into the 5th inning and ended up yielding only 2 Brewer singles. And so the Brewers' 11-game winning streak was snapped 1-0. And the other thing that makes it really sad, Parker, is that, Jacob Mizorowski, he was great. Struck out 7 across 3 2/3 innings, gave up 3 hits, walked only 1 batter. So, we had the right guy on the mound.
Yeah.
Here's what we didn't have. We didn't have Cal Raleigh, who is the leader in the home runs this season, as a catcher. We haven't seen anything like that since Johnny Bench. And Johnny Bench did not have the same kind of nickname that Cal Raleigh has, the Big Dumper.
Big Dumpers.
Only because, again, some teammates said that, that's a big can he's got on his backside there, which I suppose if you're a catcher, those glutes can get to be in good shape. So the Big Dumper hit his major league leading 39th home run of the season. So that was it. The guy that won the home run derby hit a home run and ended the Brewers' 11-game winning streak. So the Brewers just, they get right back at it. They're now tied for first place with the Chicago Cubs and get a chance to once again try to take first place on their own by playing the Mariners. Wrapping up that series this afternoon, 2:05 will be the start of the pregame on Civic Media stations in Richland Center, Oshkosh, Racine, Kenosha, Park Falls, and Hayward. And then they'll have tomorrow off, home for a series against the Florida Marlins starting Friday. And then the Cubs come to town next Monday for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday setup, including a Wednesday day game. And interestingly enough, as we were setting up for, this get together here, Parker, the Civic Media folks have great tickets for the Brewers, club level seats. We'll give away some more this Friday as part of Free Ticket Friday. And somebody that I know really well, that'd be me, is going to be using those tickets real soon in a few days here. And did you catch yesterday how they put out the word like, hey, these tickets are really starting to get popular. So, you might not get the ones you want for the games you want. And if you want them, you got to make sure that you're able to use them. So it's still a hot ticket. We've been giving tickets away for that Cubs, Brewers Cubs series. And I am very encouraged to think that American Family Field is going to have many more Brewers fans than it normally does when the Cubs come to town, because a lot of times people are like, they're coming. Let's skip it.
I've voiced my concerns about that. Go to the game, Brewer fans.
Go to the game.
Otherwise, you're giving the Cubs a seat.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't.
You don't have to engage. You can just be there to, as they say, root for the home team. Which, by the way, that is also when I mentioned rooting for the home team. We have an article on ways that you can enjoy baseball on a budget across Wisconsin. There are many teams beyond, of course, the Brewers in the major leagues. There's what in Madison? There's the Mallards.
There's the Mallards.
And then what's the other one? The Nightmares?
Nightmares is the softball team.
The softball team. And we're counting that for these purposes. By the way, Nightmares, Mares.
Yes.
Like the Phillies.
Although
Nightmares.
last night, I believe, was Nightmares night, and they had like clowns and snakes and stuff. They have a great time over there.
It's one of my favorite T-shirts is one that just all the writing is in a spiral and it spirals inward, and the whole time it says, "Can't sleep, clowns will eat me. Can't sleep, clowns will eat me. Can't sleep." Anyway, on the website, Baseball for a Bargain. So whether it's the Mallards or a host of other teams around Wisconsin, there are all kinds of different specials and deals that enable you to save a few bucks while taking in the old ball game at one of many locations around Wisconsin. So look for that over at upnorthnewswi.com. So, but you didn't have to work that game last night.
I did not know. I had the fortune of seeing a picture of an intern with their eyes popping out of her head while a snake was around her neck. That's how I found out.
So good job.
Yeah.
You missed that one. Oh, man. Hey, a little note about Civic Media now that I've told you some nice things about Up North News here. But here at the Civic Media World Headquarters, besides Up North News having a newsroom with statewide reach, our friends here at Civic Media also have you covered, including local news updates that you can get from each individual station. What you do is you go to civicmedia.us and then call up your local Civic Media station, and that'll bring up that station's homepage. And up near the top, you'll see a daily news roundup that you can listen to right there. You can sign up for email versions of the daily update as well. And by the way, while you're at the Civic Media website, there's merchandise out there too. So again, civicmedia.us is where you learn much more about the programs and where you can get merch and where you can listen to podcasts like Matt Rothschild's podcast. And I believe Matt Rothschild is guest hosting, yes, Matt and Air on Air, coming up at 9:00 right after this fine program right here. And then, of course, we've got, like I said, an assortment of either guest hosts or other best of programming while we have a little summer fun here. It's summer vacation season. So for summer vacation, the hosts here, we're going to lock ourselves in a room and talk. It's going to be great.
That sounds
promise.
awesome.
Yes. So an entire new lineup is coming your way tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. across the Civic Meet. No, it'll be fine. It'll be great. Parker's not believing this for a minute over here.
I think it'll be okay.
What the thing I'm curious about is the icebreaker. Everything has an icebreaker. And
all right, guys, join hands in the middle and see if you can untie the human knot.
Maybe if you got any great ideas for icebreakers or incredibly bad ideas, we'll take them. Really. From the heart of America's up north, which of course is all of Wisconsin. Thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Lordy, I hate Don't forget, you can get everything we do at Up North News in terms of Wisconsin news coverage through our daily newsletter and our Sunday morning newsletter as well. Sign up at upnorthnewswi.com. In today's edition, we've got a feature on Arrowhead High School star pitcher Peter Cuso, who just signed with the New York Mets, the only Wisconsin high schooler invited to this year's NFL Draft Combine. Also, some cases of true crime history in Wisconsin, 11 of the biggest true crime stories that have come out of our state, and also a new study that ties the state's weaker than usual state gun laws to the number of child deaths in Wisconsin. Again, these are gun deaths that are entirely preventable if we would take the situation more seriously, if our elected officials would take the situation more seriously. And again, for that and more of our coverage, sign up for that newsletter, upnorthnewswi.com. So this is what stuck out at Urban Milwaukee, the site urbanmilwaukee.com, and investigative reporter Bruce Murphy, who has been doing the due diligence of, well, any good reporter who has to cover things like, unknowns who want to be governor and already have more than $1 million applied toward that. Now, granted, in Bill Berrien's case, the CEO of this manufacturing firm raised $1.2 million in the last reporting period, but $1 million of that $1.2 million came from the Winklevoss twins and their cryptocurrency endeavors. We're going to talk more about cryptocurrency tomorrow, by the way, with State Senator Kelda Royce and State Representative Ryan Spouty. More about that coming up. But anyway, so there's Bill Berrien, this businessman who's running for governor. And Bruce Murphy notes that he does describe himself as a Navy SEAL, that he owns a New Berlin-based manufacturing company, that he's an outsider who would shake up Madison. He calls himself a Wisconsin convert who moved to the state and chose to raise his family in the Milwaukee suburb of Whitefish Bay. But Bruce Murphy writes precisely when Berrien moved here, how he acquired his wealth, and how much business acumen he has is unclear. The candidate has not said anything about his family or his upbringing, and that's when Bruce Murphy got to digging here, and so he found out more about Bill Berrien's parents, including Willard Berry. Actually, Bill Berrien's full name is Willard Berrien III, son of Willard Hewitt Berrien Jr., also known as Bill, who passed away in March after a long career in finance. He was an avid stock investor. The Berrien family had a home on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, Bruce Murphy writes, one of the most affluent areas of New York City, a summer home on Long Island. And one realtor says the pace of life in that neighborhood is quieter and more measured than in other parts of the Hamptons. I know exactly what you're thinking here. Wait a minute. Didn't we just go through this with Tim Michaels? Wasn't Tim Michaels essentially living, around New York City and growing up around wealth and privilege and sending his kids to school there? Yeah. So that's what we know about the Berrien family being raised on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Let's see. He was Bill Berrien, an active member of several clubs in the area. He went, according to Murphy's story, to the best private schools. He attended St. David's on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. The current tuition is $64,000 a year. He went to high school at Trinity School on the Upper West Side, where tuition is about $69,000 a year. In today's dollars, that would be $788,000. From there, it was on to the Ivy League. Bill attended Princeton University, just 80 minutes away by train, where he got a degree in politics and added to his resume by serving as captain of the Princeton University water polo team. So you might, in the future, hear us describe Bill Berrien, not business owner Bill Berrien, but Princeton University water polo captain Bill Berrien, who's running for Wisconsin governor. Berrien did then join the Navy SEALs. He served as a team officer and platoon commander, graduating from the Naval Officer Candidate School as a distinguished naval graduate. So again, he has served his country, and we thank him for that. He went back to school, getting a master's in international economics at Johns Hopkins University. He got an MBA at Harvard. it's funny for all the Republicans who are looking to attack Harvard and want to diminish the Ivy League. A lot of them sure seem to have Ivy League degrees of some sort or another. Bruce Murphy notes that by his mid-30s, he still did not have a clear career path. His LinkedIn profile shows no job or schooling for 2 years after that Harvard degree. Berrien told WISN he moved to Wisconsin 23 years ago, but that would have been while he was still attending Harvard. The first LinkedIn item that could place him in Wisconsin is a global product manager at GE Healthcare, which has offices in Chicago and Milwaukee. In 2004, 2005, he finally then has an address listed after purchasing a home in Whitefish Bay in 2009 for $625,000. He calls himself a Southeast Wisconsin community leader, including 12 years of volunteer parent coaching his 2 sons in youth and high school lacrosse and serving on the boards of numerous charities. But then as Bruce Murphy goes on and talks about his professional career, he's having a tough time finding out where Berrien got the money to actually acquire the business that he has now. And Bruce Murphy wraps up simply by saying, all of this suggests that the life story and candidacy of Bill Berrien is not quite the simple tale he has been telling voters. And again, none of that may be untoward, but as somebody who's run for office, I mean, the advice is always clear, and that is have your story, tell your story, tell people who you are. And for the love of all things holy in politics, don't leave gaps that you can't explain. So Bill Berrien will be asked a little bit more about the path that led him to believing that he should be the next governor of Wisconsin. We'll hear from Dan Shafer about independent redistricting after the Midwest Farm Report here on the Civic Media Radio Network. what did you find for us over here now? This is some intriguing new bumper music.
It is, yeah. It is a breath of fresh air.
Well, that's
the name
debatable. Oh, that's the cut.
That's the name.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Can't believe that.
Got a little bit of like a little Al Hurt vibe in there.
Yeah,
Kind
a
of,
little
sort
bit of
of.
trumpets for you, or whatever it is. I don't know.
All right.
I
Really
don't
good.
know instruments very well.
So not a kazoo. That much we know.
Yes.
Very limited musical knowledge that we have here. The whole topic of Bill Berrien was brought up running for governor because of him saying that he was going to drop $400,000 in advertising. And it's what led to our question of the week in our Sunday morning newsletter that you can sign up for at upnorthnewswi.com, saying that if somebody spends that much money more than a year ahead of the primary election, does that make you really not like them and less likely to vote for them? Or does it really not matter because you understand they need to build their name ID and it's neither here nor there? But do you actually like it because it shows some initiative, some gumption on the part of the candidate? The answer has overwhelmingly been A at this point. Although, again, keep in mind that while people are not happy that Bill Berrien is running ads right now, it could be later on that they may really like what they're hearing if his candidacy lasts into next year. But Mel writes, when someone runs ads this early in the election cycle, I think they must have lots of money or the backing of some money donors to be able to afford it, and that alone makes me wary, which is completely understandable. But again, if you'd like to answer as well, you should be a subscriber to our Sunday morning newsletter. And of course, you can also send us your thoughts by email. Send that email to radio@upnorthnewswi.com. All right. Well, yesterday, late in the show, we talked to our friend Dan Shafer, the political editor at Civic Media and founder of the Recombobulation Area. And his most recent newsletter is about nonpartisan redistricting. To which you think, well, wait, we got fair maps. Everything's all good, right? No, far from it. And the elections next year in 2026 will perhaps decide whether Wisconsin comes even closer to fair maps or gets gerrymandered all over again. And so Dan Shafer has talked to folks who are looking to make a push for nonpartisan redistricting. Take the legislature out of it once and for all. To do that, they'll need a permanent legislative solution and legislators willing to abide by it. So I started by asking Dan just a bit more about what he wrote about in his newsletter that you can get at therecombobulationarea.news.
Yeah, so I was writing this piece over the last couple of weeks here and got a chance to talk to a number of folks who have long been involved in the Fair Maps movement in Wisconsin and are kind of beginning the latest effort anew. And last year, when Tony Evers signed new maps into law in February of 2024, I think that was a momentous achievement for the state of being out from under a decade of the most egregious partisan gerrymander for any state legislature in the country and moving towards a better, newer, fairer maps that were initiated by this remedial maps process that came through the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Huge achievement, but not a long-term one. It's a short-term fix to the problem of unconstitutional maps. And 2030 is, just a few years away, and we're going to be back at square one without an actual legislative change to reform the way the state operates its redistricting process. And so I talked to people with Wisconsin Democracy Campaign and the Fair Maps Coalition and the League of Women's Voters and a number of volunteers who have been meeting for hours every week to talk about and hone this plan to try to get a quote unquote Wisconsin model for independent redistricting in the state. And I think the plan that they have come up with is a pretty compelling one. And right now it is what is happening. It is kind of coming from the behind the scenes, crafting the proposal, crafting the process stage to really bringing it to the public. So they've held a number of public events about this proposal over the past few weeks. I believe they had ones in Wausau and Green Bay and Dodgeville and Whitefish Bay, just north of Milwaukee. And so I think they're eyeing to have more of these in the coming months and eventually have a proposal that will bring legislation creating an independent redistricting commission for the state of Wisconsin that would oversee the redistricting process every 10 years. And then it would also include a push for a constitutional amendment to change to amend the state constitution to say that it is not the legislators themselves who are drawing the maps, who have oversight over the redistricting process. Kind of the old adage of the voters should pick their leaders, not the other way around.
Again, I'm glad they're starting as early as they are, because we don't know the results of the 2026 election, but they need to be ready come January of 2027, try to put together, enough of a bipartisan coalition where the party leaders from one or both parties don't go, well, blank that, we're going to win and we're going to draw the maps.
Yeah, and the goal for this is to have bipartisan support, and it is very purposefully not being crafted in partnership with any lawmakers from either major political party in Wisconsin. I think some of the people that I talked to for this are a little bit more skeptical of Democrats' motivations in the Fair Maps movement, after some wanted to wait and have the courts draw the maps during the remedial maps process last year, instead of having the governor sign the maps that he himself proposed. So I think some were waiting for a slightly more advantageous map for Democrats. And I think some people, some of these pro-democracy advocates and fair maps activists were saying, wait a minute there. That's not really what we're here about. That's not what we, what our priorities and principles are. And so I think there are some people in that space who are wanting to say, we don't want either party to have the opportunity to gerrymander maps ever in Wisconsin. Again, we saw how it decimated the state's politics in so many ways. And so regardless of which party would be in power in 2030, the effort here is to get that power out of the power to draw the maps out of the politicians' hands.
We're talking to Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation Area. You can sign up for his newsletter, the recombobulationarea.news. And of course, he's the political editor here at Civic Media as well. We talked about it being, it's quiet here while we wait for the governor to make his announcement. Do you feel, maybe you have the list right next to you, that if the governor announces he's not running, and the list of potential candidates, can you imagine how many phone calls are going to be made within like the first 5 minutes of that announcement? And I really am concerned that some of these folks, their phones might actually catch fire, because so many calls are going to be coming into them going, do you have something to say? And we should know better. There's nobody that's going to announce within 5 minutes of the governor's announcement that they're running, even though we all want to be the first one to get somebody saying that they're running. So
course,
I guess we're just tempering expectations, I guess, is what I'm doing here.
Yeah, it's going to be, there are a lot of careers riding on what the decision the governor makes, right? I think we've gone through the list, I think, on this show or others a couple different times about who the group of candidates might be to run for governor, but it's certainly going to be a busy time as soon as Evers makes that decision. And that's not to say like what the other implications of that might be, what, races for attorney general or secretary of state, depending on who might be running. And I think there are, the domino effect of this is going to be pretty profound, regardless of what way this goes for the governor, especially if he decides not to seek a third term. There are going to be a lot of changes in Democratic politics in Wisconsin. And once again, I will reiterate, I think that's a good thing.
Once again, that's Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation Area. Sign up at the recombobulationarea.news to learn more, as he can, along with all the rest of us, continues to follow what it is that Tony Evers is going to do or not do when it comes to running for a third term, and potentially opening up a wide open Democratic primary and an even wider Republican primary for governor next year. All right, it is my unfortunate duty to shift gears to the Epstein files here for a moment, only because, again, of conduct so outrageous and egregious, it can't just be ignored. As much as we'd like to ignore and not have to think about parts of the Epstein case, the fact of the matter is that justice continues to be delayed for many of the victims in that case, and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is in essence now part of that cover-up. He chose yesterday to send Congress home early. The summer recess, he started it more than a day early, rather than have to deal with the push by some members to pass legislation or a resolution that would call for the release of more of the files about the sexual predator. Why? I mean, these are Republicans who, along with Democrats now, have been clamoring for transparency for the longest time. And so when President Trump did his about face recently and said, it's all a hoax, there's really nothing there, understandably, folks were suspicious on both sides of the aisle and said, how about if we just get it all out there? And look, there are folks who are still allies of President Trump who are attacking Democrats for piling on at this point, going, oh, we haven't heard from you for, over a couple of years on this case. And now suddenly you're vocal about it. Well, yeah, here's why. Uh, there was no need to. The people who were clamoring for the past 2-3 years or more about this were people who were trying to make political hay out of this whole issue. And now that it's become clear that those same people are being disappointed by a potential cover up by the president and the Speaker of the House, it's worth calling out. Uh, even those of us who weren't using the case for political hay can now look at this in case and say, can we all not agree that everything should be out there? And most people would tell you everything should be out there. And yet every Republican from Wisconsin in Congress and most Republicans in the House voted against a measure last week that would have called for that. So here's what the White House is doing instead. We talked about some of the potential distractions that are out there yesterday. Here's the newest distraction, where a deputy attorney general of the United States is going to be meeting with Epstein's girlfriend and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell in prison in Florida, saying that, he wants to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell to see if there's anything that she wants to say, and that if she's got accusations to make, she should be able to make them. Well, this is not what it appears to be. She's been convicted. She's serving a 20-year sentence. She has seen Donald Trump give out pardons like candy to convicted criminals. The fact that a deputy attorney general at this level has never gone to a prison to meet with a convicted felon. I mean, prosecutors do, but not political members of a presidential administration. It just reeks of the potential to dangle some kind of deal for leniency or a pardon if she'll say what Trump wants her to say. She's had a chance to talk in court. She's decided not to. Prosecutors in the past have said that she has lied to them. So anything that she says is a little, shall we say, untrustworthy. So a deputy attorney general saying that he wants to go visit with her and see if there's anything she wants to say is a big red flag compared to simply, releasing the files that are already there and already collected. And the number of Republicans recognizing this is only growing. And while Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has sent Congress home wishing it would go away, it's probably only going to increase the pressure on them to come back to DC after the recess and say, let's release all this and get it behind us, no matter what's in it. Which, by the way, is the right answer, because it's about justice for the victims, not diversions, not distractions, but justice. Today's history lesson is next. You're up north.
Who's here?
There she is now. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I can't see you right now. I'm working off a tiny laptop here,
Oh.
and
It's a very different world when he's in Madison.
here in beautiful Madison. So how is Lilu?
Still very shy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Little we're, I don't know. Grunting and flapping still.
Okay. So not a lot of recreational moments with our friend.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'll get there.
Have you been bitten?
No.
Okay, good.
The pigeons bite?
It would be a peck, but
That's
no.
what. Okay.
We've only made contact with the wings.
Okay. All right.
She flapped me. They flapped me a couple times, but that's it.
Okay. All right. Maybe you're not, you need to feed it some other stuff that it wants. What would a pigeon like? Cotton candy?
They don't really like treats.
Definitely not KFC.
Parker.
Parker. Jeez.
Oh, jeez. I knew one KFC joke.
Who would make that? Oh,
15 seconds.
all right. You have my permission to turn your radio up to 11 right about now. Everybody's got a song or two where they're just like, I just need to blast something. For me, that would be Synchronicity 2 by The Police. Their final album, Synchronicity, hit number 1 this day in 1983. And I'm going to leave this music up just long enough because the first line to the first verse is just, it's wonderful. Here we go. And what do you have to do? You have to shout above the din of our Rice Krispies as grandmother is screaming at the wall. Another suburban family morning. Just another day in Wisconsin Rapids, where we bring along our friend Melissa Kay from 97.5 WFHR and 105.5 WIRI. Melissa, how are you?
Good morning. I am doing good. Sitting in the dark because we want the heat out.
Yeah, oh yeah, it is going to be a hot one today.
Yeah.
Yikes!
Mm-hmm.
Is it hot enough to for a pigeon to need air conditioning? How's Lilu doing?
Well, you know, Lilu's doing good. Until 104, they are okay.
Okay,
And that's what we're supposed to hit today with the heat indexes. So depending on how.
I'm not okay at 104. That's impressive.
Nobody should be okay.
No,
at
nobody should be.
104. So Lilu still no tricks to show off. Or
No tricks.
I don't see a flaming hoop that she's jumping through or anything like that.
They did manage to muddle through the bath I put in the cage for them. So
okay,
we're making progress.
Hey, bathing is important. You know,
it is.
So
it's true.
Once,
as Brittany Merlot now knows after camping at DAA for a couple of days.
I think we're going to hear from her one more time in about 15-20 minutes here, and I'm hoping the days and days of camping at AirVenture have been kind to her, and that she does not look like she's surviving some kind of a reality show out in the jungle. Melissa, did you have a song or a group like that? Like there's just some song you want to just turn up to 11 and blast it?
Oh yeah, probably. But is
it a Broadway show tune, or is it like there's nothing you rock out
in cycles? And right now, Rainbow Kitten Surprise is my band that I like to turn up really loud, but they're not radio safe.
Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
Yeah.
Okay. Parker knows this.
I do.
He's going to get me a clip so that I understand. Because I am now intrigued.
Oh boy.
On this day in 1903, the Ford Motor Company sold its very first car. On this day in 2018, the National Transportation Safety Board warned against the trend of jumping out of moving cars and dancing to Drake's In My Feelings. Melissa, please tell me you never did that to make a viral video.
Never did that.
Okay. This next one, look, I'm not taking joy in this, but nobody has given us the sound of irony quite like Amy Winehouse, who died on this day in 2011.
I said no, no, no. Yes, I've been black, but when I come back.
Amy Winehouse, dead of alcohol poisoning at the age of 27, this day in 2011. On this day in 1996, then 18-year-old Fiona Apple released her debut album, and it would sell over 3 million copies. Happy birthday to Slash, the Guns N' Roses guitarist, who is 60 years old today. Happy 54th birthday to Alison Krauss. Now, again, in true testimony that we all like all different kinds of music. At one moment, I might blast Synchronicity, and yet there's not an Alison Krauss song that I wouldn't also turn up and listen to with that
Same.
voice. Yeah.
Same. She's awesome.
Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter. Want to take a guess how old he is today, the actor?
Oh man, maybe 29.
36.
Ooh,
36 today. Yes.
wow.
I
Time flies.
know. Yes. Next, happy 77th birthday to John Hall. Not Daryl Hall, not John Oates, John Hall. Totally different guy. He was the founder of the 70s musical group Orleans. He later became a community activist and a congressman from 2006 to 2010. On this day in 1962, Jackie Robinson became the first Black American inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And on this day in 1977, the number one hit was by Barry Manilow. Wait till you hear what's coming next in terms of musical whiplash, okay? So just stick around for that. Here's Barry Manilow from 1977. Looks like we made it. Yes. Now, of course, we're also, Melissa, noting the passing of a musical legend, and that, of course, would be Ozzy Osbourne, who passed away at who passed away at the age of 76. So, as we bring up one of his seminal hits, I ask you this, Melissa: where are you on the musical scale of Barry Manilow to Ozzy Osbourne?
I couldn't tell you one Ozzy Osbourne song.
I think that's our
Oh,
answer.
come on.
You know,
I know. I probably heard them, but yeah.
we've all heard them, but
True.
do I know them? No, absolutely. There's a reason why you hear yacht rock on this program and all kinds of schmaltz from the 50s and 60s. This is the demographic that we're dealing with on this particular show. But we know that John Michael Ozzy Osbourne was a leading figure in music. He was, basically the founding father of heavy metal, and then later turned out to be quite the doting father on the TV show The Osbournes. So, and I just know him from the times that he would mock himself in TV commercials. And anybody that can do that gets an extra check mark in my book. So happy trails to Ozzy Osbourne. And who knows, maybe Lilu will grow up to become, you can't force your kids to like the same thing that you like. So for all you know, Lilu
That's
may
true.
respond best to heavy metal down the road.
We'll
As
try
Lilu
it.
gets more accustomed to things here. We always appreciate the update, Melissa, and you can catch much more of what she's doing over at WFHR and WIRI in Wisconsin Rapids. Have a great day, Melissa.
Good to see you guys.
Much more after the 7 o'clock news here, live on the Civic Media Radio Network. Well, there you go. That's our musical moment with Ozzy.
There you go.
Yeah. Next week, do you want to spend a little time and talk about anything at the station, or are things still just kind of quiet there?
I'm off on Monday this
Okay.
next week, so I might be playing catch up.
Oh,
when we
okay.
get to Wednesday.
All right. I always want to look for the opportunity to do a little bit more with you rather than just have
Yeah,
to.
I mean, we have
our
a ton of live
distribution.
remotes and appearances coming up that we could talk about.
Okay. Sweet. All right. Well, I will remind me to keep history short next Wednesday, and we'll put more into that. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Melissa. See you later.
Thanks, Melissa.
Bye.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Here we go. 10 seconds.
Okay.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Minnesota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Good morning. Welcome back. 7:06. Nice to have you here. Broadcasting today and tomorrow from Civic Media HQ in Madison, along with Parker Olson, and right here in Madison Studio A2. Here's visual proof for folks watching on social media. This room really is big enough for the two of us.
Not by much.
But not by much at all. In fact, we could not possibly fit meteorologist Brittany Merlot in here, which is fine because she is in Oshkosh. She is roughing it in the elements. And Brittany, I've looked at the radar long enough to know the elements are headed your way. How are you?
Yes, they are. Good morning, everyone. I am fantastic so far. Woke up to text alert here at Oshkosh EAA AirVenture saying, hey, listen up. We've got rain headed here. It's going to be starting around 7 a.m., lasting for about 3 hours or so. So that's what we've got here. We're still under the heat advisory as well, but a good chunk of the state from Eau Claire to Green Bay and everyone south is under that heat advisory today. We are climbing to the mid 80s to mid 90s, and it's going to be feeling like 100 to 105 degrees today. So we've got a lot of things going on. We've already got the warm front moving in, rain rolling through a good chunk of the southern half of the state. Nothing severe, but a few power outages caused from it. I'm not seeing any high wind reports just yet, but a lot of lightning strikes with this rain that rolls through, and it's kind of got a cool front as it moves in. It's like that shelf cloud, that spaceship look as it comes into the area. So that's what I woke up to this morning. A little bit of light drizzle, and now it's just cloudy and starting to get a little bit humid. So we've got chances of rain this morning, a little break in the afternoon, but I do think these strong to severe storms are going to start to spark up around 2 o'clock far northwest Wisconsin. Some of those, of course, could be strong to severe. And then the line builds around 6 p.m. and works its way through the northern part of the state. It kind of fizzles out as it moves south. So the tornado threat is going to be just north of Wausau into Hayward, Eau Claire, Rhinelander area this afternoon. And high wind threat kind of stretches a little bit further south and towards La Crosse and just north of Green Bay. But of course, areas throughout the entire state, down in Milwaukee and Madison, you could still see some high winds and some heavy downpours with this system moving in. It's going to be a pretty big line later on this evening. So round 1 isn't too bad, but round 2 is going to get much worse.
Well, and round 1, I mean, it's nothing to shake a stick at.
No.
Watching it go through the Madison area. I was not aware that it was coming when it was getting ready in my spacious palatial hotel room in the Madison suburbs today. And then just as I opened up the curtains to get set to walk out for the day, I see it's just starting to pour.
Oh.
I'm thinking, if only I had looked at Brittany's notes a little earlier, I would have known to get out of the hotel earlier. But anyway, I stole this towel from the hotel room. I'm good. I'm covered.
Just cover your head, run around.
Yep. Got to remember to bring that back. And you take care out there as well. You got all kinds of people. You got gear. You got weather coming your way. So, and then by the way, you're going to be taking tomorrow and Friday just as personal days to continue to enjoy all that, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I know it's going to be pretty crazy weather, so I'm going to have to be staying dry myself, and I want to get in there and have some fun. So I will be back on Monday.
Oh, no, that is just fine. Robin Tigerton asks, did you do any flying at the EAA yet?
Not yet. See, this is why I needed some PTO. I'm going to get out there and social media. That's where I'll have all those videos for you guys.
Oh, that's fabulous. He says, good morning from Tigerton. Partly cloudy and 70 degrees. Yesterday mowed 5 yards in Tigerton. No mowing today because he has a doctor's appointment. He said, when I was a kid, I remember some of the hottest days of the year. We'd be baling hay, or in high school at the beginning of football practice. We played Alison Krauss in our last segment and said his favorite song is When You Say Nothing at All. And of course, notes the heat advisory is basically the Highway 29 corridor and south. I mean, it is a big old chunk of the state that's going to be both hot and stormy today. So we can no longer say you haven't been warned. Brittany was
Right.
here to tell you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
You guys stay cool, stay hydrated, and stay safe tonight.
Exactly. You as well. We'll talk to you a little later. Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you.
All right. As always, we'd love to have you as a subscriber to our Up North News daily newsletter. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com, and we have a Sunday morning newsletter that focuses more on the political news of the day, including a question of the week about early advertising. And if you see early advertising from somebody trying to build their name ID, does that make you respect their initiative, or does it turn you off to have such early political ads running this far in advance of a campaign? Again, you can always send us a note, radio@upnorthnewswi.com, to send an email. You can also, of course, text us through the Civic Media app, or you can send us a voice note. Just use that voice note feature when you call up one of the stations on the Civic Media app. Put a little recording on there, and we may play it here on air. Well, the Brewers' 11-game win streak came to an end. It did not go to 12 games. There will not be free hamburgers unless you head over to Parker's place. He likes to grill. He'll make you up a little something as you cry in your beer about the Brewers not being able to reach that 12-game plateau. They lost 1-0 to the Seattle Mariners on a Cal Raleigh home run. It was... it ended not with a bang, but a whimper, I guess you could say, the 11-game winning streak.
Yeah, not as bad of a whimper as the Phillies won the other day. Did you see this? They won on a catcher's interference.
Yeah.
That is the saddest win I think I've ever seen.
It is, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, catchers can't put your mitt there where they can swing the bat. So don't do it with the bases loaded. It'll bite you, as it did. But the Brewers lose, but they will wrap up that series in Seattle this afternoon. Pregame starts at 2:00 on several Civic Media stations, 2:05 to be specific, for that game. And then the Brewers are off tomorrow. And then they start a 3-game series Friday at home against the Marlins. And then the Cubs come to town next Monday. So when I mentioned Bill Berrien, the candidate for governor, running ads early, it's because he's got to build up his name ID. He's not an elected official. Other elected officials don't have to worry about that. They don't have to spend money yet. In fact, they can raise more money right now as a result. And that takes us to Tom Tiffany and headlines, including one in the Milwaukee Journal that read, Congressman Tom Tiffany teases a run for Wisconsin governor, but says he hasn't made up his mind. Okay, that's fine. But he puts signs out there when we talk about teasing, like he recently tweeted out a photo of himself, holding a crappie and saying that all future Wisconsin gubernatorial candidates must prove they know how to hold a fish. And he, of course, has purchased the website domain name tomtiffanyforgovernor.com, which leads directly to his congressional campaign site. The homepage labels Tiffany, quote, a proven conservative for Wisconsin. Not northern Wisconsin. He's got the whole state lumped in there. And when asked by the Journal Sentinel, Tiffany told the newspaper he'd make his decision, quote, after July. Now, of course, he's not the only candidate who might yet run still. There is State Senate President Mary Felskowski. There's former Senate candidate Eric Hovde. There's former governor candidate Tim Michels, and Tiffany as well. In putting those signs out there, what is it that we're supposed to read into this? Well, as somebody who's been involved in this little game, let me explain the game. Fundraising is no fun. There's nobody that puts the fun in fundraising, despite the old joke. It is a long, hard slog of asking people to support your campaign because you're the candidate that best reflects their values and who wants to get things done. And so you sit there hour after hour after hour, either making phone calls or attending fundraisers or planning fundraisers, because this is the system that we have right now to raise funds to be a viable candidate. So how could you gin up that fundraising? What could juice up the donors a little bit? Well, one of those ways would be to get people excited that you are looking at bigger and better things coming up ahead. And as much as I love to tell people that you should not lump both parties together, the both sides do it, both parties do it about a lot of things, this ain't one of them. This is one where both parties very much look for anything that provides a fundraising edge. And if that includes teasing a potential run that you're probably not going to make, but it gets some people excited, well, chances are you're going to put that out there. And I have seen people from both parties do this over the years. And I would not call it wrong. I would not call it even unethical. I would call it an unfortunate part of the fundraising landscape that's out there. We have had members of Congress from both parties who have multiple times teased a potential run for governor or a potential run for U.S. Senate, or they just don't deny the rumors that are out there that they're thinking about running. And then when you look at their next campaign finance report, well, gosh, did they ever get a nice boost from people who thought, that person might make a nice governor, or that person might make a nice senator. And it's just one of, many tactics that are out there that Tony on YouTube best describes with the words money, 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 money. Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's not easy. It's something where you're looking for whatever will give you just that little bit of extra bounce. And in Tom Tiffany's case, it's that. Now, he may actually want to run for governor. He may be serious about it. All I'm saying is that he has absolutely no reason right now to tell you, no, I don't want to be governor. I'm perfectly happy where I am right now. He's in a district that he can get elected in over and over again. He can lob all the spitballs and verbal grenades that he wants at Democrats, knowing that he is safe. But if he had to run for governor, well, then he would have to defend some of the things about his record as a member of Congress, as a member of the state Senate. He would have to face questions beyond northern Wisconsin about why he wants to, dig up or bulldoze northern Wisconsin. This is the person who led the charge to get rid of the mining moratorium, the rules that said if you want to open a mine in Wisconsin, here's what you have to do. You have to prove that you have operated a mine somewhere else and closed it. And for years afterwards, you did not pollute the groundwater. If you've done those things, then you are welcome to apply to open a mine in northern Wisconsin. But if you can't do that, all evidence shows you're likely to pollute and harm the environment in northern Wisconsin. So no, thank you. But that law's not on the books anymore because of, as he's nicknamed up there, Toxic Tom Tiffany. And he has consistently been on the side of development and extraction and anything that would make the Northwoods a little bit less than what it is. Mary Felskowski, if she runs for governor, will be in that same vein of trying to tell people, why it is that they want to pave paradise and put up a parking lot. But until that happens, Senate President Felskowski, Congressman Tiffany, and others can continue to let their voters know that they're intrigued by the idea. They're exploring the idea of running for governor. Then once they announce, well, the fundraising starts all over again, and they will have lost, the edge that they're building right now while they're continuing to let the rumor mill do its thing. And it is really doing its thing right now until Governor Tony Evers makes an announcement one way or another. A local update is coming up next for some of you. And then when we're all back together in about 15 minutes, we are going to talk about declining enrollment and the reduction in state funding. Live here on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. 7:22 now on this Wednesday morning, July 23rd, 2025, live from Madison Studio A2. Producer Parker Olson joining me here. Well, actually, I'm joining him. This is his room.
Welcome to my world.
Welcome to your. I'm just taking a look around here at. What do you think that this used to be once upon a time? This is an office building in downtown Madison that I'm sure has been several different things over the years. And
Yeah.
you just wonder what kind of decisions were made in this room by whatever business was in here. Perhaps weighty decisions like, do we get legal pads that are narrow lined or legal lined?
Always been a big fan of the college rule papers.
College rule might be the way to go. Yes. So it's just where, it's where we make radio happen. It's not Madison Studio A1. Let me explain.
A1's very
the difference here.
I like
okay.
A1.
Madison Studio A1, where like Todd Alba will broadcast from there, looks out over State Street. State Street is this wonderful area with very limited traffic, buses only, and pedestrians that connects the state capitol to the UW Madison campus. And it's a wonderful place to be. And we're right here at the top of State Street, just one block off of the Capitol Square. So you can, see the Capitol clearly when you walk out the door. If you're at the studio, you get to see all the people and the traffic coming by. And it's wonderful. And here, a little deeper inside the office, we've got a view of cubicles.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of cubicles.
Yeah. We do have a window, though.
That's true.
Technically.
A window that looks out into the main office area.
Yeah. Whenever Dom needs to print something for John and Gordy, I know. Because that printer is right there.
It's just, it kind of has from The Office, it kind of has a Michael Scott vibe to it.
Yeah.
When you're looking out there.
Yeah,
kind of. And I'm sure a lot of magic happens out there. But
I'm sure.
Here it's just us creating, using the theater of the mind on radio here. Tony puts on YouTube, very kind of the handsome and capable Luke to let you into his closet. If I'd have been thinking, I would have brought a nice big photo of Luke for you to hang on the wall right there behind you.
I think I might have lost it. I don't think I'd make it through the show with that.
Oh, I think it would be great. And we love Luke.
He's always watching.
We did speak earlier with Melissa Kay in our history segment about the passing of Ozzy Osbourne. And I'm going to read off a lot of the obituary material from the Associated Press, mainly because I was not in Ozzy's wheelhouse, shall we say. I was not the target audience, having been raised on, Glenn Campbell, Captain and Tennille, Neil Diamond. Other people did. And for them, Ozzy was kind of the antidote. John Michael Osborne, nicknamed Ozzy, the gloomy, demon-invoking lead singer of the pioneering band Black Sabbath, who became the throaty, growling voice and drug and alcohol-ravaged id of heavy metal, died Tuesday, just weeks after his farewell show. He was 76. If you haven't heard me say this before, if there's one group of writers I admire so much, it's music writers. The way that they have just a way with words to describe music and musicians. It's wonderful. Black Sabbath's 1969 self-titled debut LP has been likened to the Big Bang of heavy metal, the AP writes. It came during the height of the Vietnam War and crashed the hippie party, dripping menace and foreboding. Osbourne, a 5-time Grammy winner, I'm surprised to say, was twice inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once with Sabbath in 2006, and again in 2024 as a solo artist, having been booted from Black Sabbath back in 1979. The Guardian newspaper wrote in 2009 that the band, quote, introduced working-class anger, stoner sludge grooves, and witchy horror rock to flower power. Black Sabbath confronted the empty platitudes of the 1960s and helped kill off the hippie counterculture. I love that writing. Later, he would reveal himself to be a doddering but sweet father on the reality TV show The Osbournes. The original Black Sabbath lineup reunited for the first time in July, for the first time in 20 years, for what Osbourne said would be his final concert. Let the madness begin, he told 42,000 fans in Birmingham. And again, as somebody who was not, I obviously I knew who he was. He's a big cultural figure.
I don't think you can't.
You really can't at some point. And for me, it dates way back to when he, bit the head off a bat that somebody had thrown up on stage. And
I made sure not to mention that to Melissa.
We weren't going to do that because for all we know, it could have been a pigeon. If there weren't. And he says he thought it was just like a rubber plaything that he grabbed, and I'm sure he got a nasty surprise, and he went right for rabies shots after that. But it helped instill an image. And look, in show business, image is everything. And he found that image, he cultivated it, even if it was, all quite genuine in its darkness and its angst in the early days. You have to know how to maintain that. You have to know how to make it your own. And that is something that Black Sabbath did and that Ozzy Osbourne did. And, it appealed to so many people that people who weren't fans could not help but notice, especially when you then take it to the next level. And that's being able to have a little fun with yourself. And famously, there was this Diet Pepsi commercial where he thinks he's talking to, two of his kids, and, they unzip the Diet Pepsi can. Oh, it's not regular Pepsi, it's Diet Pepsi. And those aren't his kids. Those are Donnie and Marie. And up come Donnie and Marie and Ozzy Osbourne. And Ozzy wakes up because it's a nightmare that his kids are Donnie and Marie. But instead of Sharon Osbourne consoling him in bed, it's Florence Henderson, Mrs. Brady from the Brady Bunch. I mean, that's great. That's a great commercial right there on all accounts, to be able to spoof yourself and, still maintain your credibility, your connection to the music and the image that puts you where you are. Ozzy Osbourne managed to do all those things. I'm not going to tell you he was a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination, but he was a true showman and deserved all the accolades that he received this summer before his passing. We'll have this week's homeroom segment coming up in just a bit. You're up north.
Lovely morning. Try not to kill yourself today. Think of all that you've been missing. Prescription made painkillers. Count your blessings early, for the lotto
look at the gates. Winning's for the lucky.
Hello, Jimmy. Hey.
What is
Hey
up?
there. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Good. My 7:30 guests are still not here, so you might have to stand by.
I'm good. Whatever you need, man.
All right, thanks.
15?
We must have done something right there in that last segment Tony puts up on YouTube. I might have to listen to more Black Sabbath from that description. Well, that wasn't me. That was the Associated Press. But
You put it so eloquently.
I
though.
read it in a convincing
Yeah,
fashion.
like a true radio man. You know how to read.
Yes, that's right. Left to right, top to bottom. I've got this all figured out. In today's homeroom segment, let's start with a report from the Wisconsin Policy Forum, nonpartisan think tank, and their newest edition, their newest study says Wisconsin education spending falls further behind the national average, noting that Wisconsin spent just shy of $15,000 per pupil on public elementary and secondary education in the 2022-2023 fiscal year. The most recent year for which the U.S. Census Bureau data is available, that was about 10% less than the national average of $16,500. When adjusted for inflation, Wisconsin pre-K to 12 education spending per pupil has increased very slightly since 2002, just 2.5%. In 2002, Wisconsin spent about $14,000 per pupil in inflation-adjusted numbers, whereas the national average has gone up a little bit more than 2.5% since 2002. It's gone up 21% since then, as other states recognize the importance of educating our children rather than declaring war on education in our state. The Wisconsin Policy Forum report goes on to say this continues a long-running decline in our state's rank for per-pupil education spending, which back in 2002 was 11th in the nation. Wisconsin ranked 7th out of 12 states in the Midwest in 2023, compared to 1st among Midwestern states back in 2002. When statewide education spending is measured as a share of all residents' combined personal incomes, Wisconsin also has been on a long-term decline. In the 2000s and early 2010s, Wisconsin spent a significantly larger share of personal income on education compared to the national average. This share declined to roughly match the nation for a period prior to the pandemic. In 2023, however, that share increased nationally, but continued to decline in Wisconsin. And the intro ends with saying, these figures are the latest example of a decades-long shift in our state's investment in public education and state and local tax burden relative to its peers. Observing them is particularly timely, as state policymakers recently enacted the state's next 2-year budget, of which K-12 education is the largest spending priority for the state. And that's as it should be. K-12 spending should be a high priority for the state. It still takes up a significant chunk of the budget, but much less so compared to the part of investment that was being made by other states. And when you get to the part about education spending as a percentage of combined personal income, that's what's called the tax burden. And the tax burden has gone down and down and down. And in the beginning, when it first started to decline, you could clearly hear politicians saying that that was a good thing in their book. And it has continued to fall to the point where if I were to say to you that funding education is no longer a significant tax burden, people, of course, would rightly say, well, that's crazy. Of course, it's a tax burden. Well, it's still the biggest part of the state budget. But in terms of it being a percentage of the taxes that you pay and as a percentage of the income that you get, the tax burden for our schools has gone down and down and down. And it has come with a price, with declining enrollment as students move into other schools, and in the loss of our best and brightest as our young people leave the state and go to raise their kids elsewhere, and as some of our educators leave the state in the wake of Act 10 in order to, again, pursue their career elsewhere. So the Wisconsin Policy Forum takes a very dispassionate look at the numbers and shows the degree to which, since Republicans took control of the legislature, we have made the education of our children less and less of a priority. That is eating your seed corn in a state like Wisconsin. And our original hope this segment was to talk to a business manager and a school board member about the impact of declining enrollment on state aid. And that's because it's very tempting to think, well, if enrollment goes down, well, then, yeah, state aid should go down as well, right? I mean, that only makes sense. It would seem on its face. But there are all kinds of fixed costs that stay fixed, even if there's a decline in enrollment. If you've got 30 kids in the classroom and then it drops to 20 kids in the classroom, the electric bill for the lights in that classroom are still going to be the same. If the buses still have to take the same bus route, even if they're stopping at fewer houses along the way, the cost of gas to fill up that tank is going to stay the same. And so declining enrollment should not be accompanied by a one-to-one decline in state aid. And there are ways in the state budget where there are other little pools of money besides general state aid that help school districts with that. But none of this in total has kept up with inflation for 16 years. And it's why you see this parade of referendums around Wisconsin and why you're going to see them even after this new state budget. Because although it makes a significant increase in state aid to special education, which did take up a big chunk of all local school districts' budgets, but the zero increase in general aids means that in terms of inflation, school districts are going to continue to fall behind and are going to continue to have to go to referendum. Jimmy Koska is familiar with this particular phenomena, being a school board member himself, and knows a thing or two about how many school districts have passed referendum over the past 4 years. Jimmy, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I know that I come on and I usually come here to talk sports, but yes, I do. I'm in my 4th year as a school board member in my district in southwestern Wisconsin. So spent a lot of time, looking at referendums. Our district passed one 2 years ago, which is actually just wrapping up work this summer. So we're one of 245 districts in the state out of the 421 that have passed a referendum in the past 4 years. And since they put in the revenue limits, 3 decades ago, over 90% of districts in Wisconsin have gone to referendum, have passed a referendum. And you think about that, and that's, 9 out of every 10. There's a lot of districts in Wisconsin, 421 of them, of course. And then you think about schools that go to operational referendum, which are literally there to help pay the bills, pay expenses, keep the lights on, as you were talking about, the fixed costs, the things you can't, that can't go away. And when schools pass those, what they're saying is we have a perpetual hole in our budget that we can't fill with what we can bring in right now in our tax levies. So there are a lot of school districts that are working off of an operational referendum, which is, again, a perpetual hole in the budget, really due in part just to the fact that the funding system in Wisconsin for education has gotten so weird. So it is a very large number of districts in Wisconsin that have done referendum.
I like weird. Weird seems to be a good way to describe it. Could you describe when you were a new school board member, what it was like having to learn the way that education is paid for in this state, that it's not just a matter of, well, here go the property tax bills and here's how much we're going to get, and that it's a little bit more than that.
It felt kind of like sitting in you ever see any crime show where they have the big board and they got,
Yes.
the suspects all tacked up on the board and you got lines and yarn drawn from one point to, that's what it felt like for me anyway. There's a lot. I spent time myself diving into it with WASB, which is the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, and then going to the state education convention to really take a deep dive into it and learn as much as I could about it, especially knowing that we were going to referendum. I wanted to understand it. Like, why is this a need? Why is this happening even where I live? And it's really complicated. There's a lot of things that go into it. I think one thing that you started talking about here in this segment, Pat, you were talking about kind of the tax burden, right? The tax burden in the Wisconsin policy form analysis has dropped. One thing that has also dropped and one that has changed is just in general Wisconsin public support for, whether they would fund education or would they rather see tax breaks. That flipped about 3 years ago in the Marquette University Law School poll. So there's also a public perception that people feel like they're being taxed too much. Property taxes, and it's not just schools. I mean, there's municipal, there's county, there's all the extra fees and things associated. So in a vacuum, yes, school funding, a lower tax burden, but there's a lot of things going on beyond that, and we've seen our state legislature try to address not only education but also municipal funding in the last state budget 2 years ago. There's so many moving parts to it, and then you have to figure how it all comes out on your tax bill. And that's what we sit in a school board meeting and try to determine every year at an annual meeting. Like, what is our impact on our local tax base? What's the mill rate? What happens if we do this? What if if the referendum passes? What's the impact? How much of the referendum is part of what we're levying from local taxpayers? There's so many moving pieces. I can't even say I figured it out in 4 years, but I learned a lot about it and what actually goes all into it. And that's really helped me understand kind of why we're at and why. I've also, Pat, on a lot of these shows talked about it as, hey, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in regards to how we fund education in Wisconsin.
And the thing is, this is something that has been discussed for decades, quite literally, and that some years back, I forget exactly how many years now, but during the Walker administration, there was a blue ribbon commission that was formed, a bipartisan group, to come up with, a better mousetrap. And the Blue Ribbon Commission, made up of Democrats and Republicans, did their best, put forward some proposals. And if you really want to see educators who work on this issue get steamed, it's that there's this notion that after all was said and done with this Blue Ribbon Commission, so very little of it has been put into place.
And the other thing that happened, and this is what I think has really been the greatest impact to education funding in Wisconsin, is it also, in that span, decoupling the rise in per pupil aid from inflation has really made a big impact. If you look at any school referendum graphic, they invariably will show you just the widening gap of what, if we hadn't decoupled from inflation, what school funding would be now compared to, how it is, because it was decoupled from that. So now, state aid might not go up for a couple of years like it won't now. Like there's the general aid doesn't change, right? So there's a graph that shows just the widening gap of where school funding would have been had, the old system stayed in place during the Walker administration, right? So now that's the gap schools are trying to make up, and that's also kind of the gap you're seeing where in Wisconsin, where you see that the per pupil funding, had it stayed on the old system, coupled with tied to the inflationary measure, where we would still be where we were in the rankings 15 years ago, with that. But instead, because it's been decoupled, now that per pupil education funding has really dropped off.
And by the way, that decoupling was done when Democrats were in control. I was one of those people that voted for it. And there was a reason why. The Great Recession had just started, and we were facing a $3 billion hole, and said, the money just isn't there to keep up with inflation this year. So let's take a pause this cycle. Republicans took control the next year and never hooked the train back up, and we have been falling behind inflation ever since. A local update is next for some of you. Others will stick around, and Jimmy and I will continue our conversation here, and then we'll have much more in our 8 o'clock hour, live from Madison today. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, well, let's keep things rolling here with Jimmy Koska. Although coming back to our school discussion and, the education funding indexing to inflation that was ended back in 2009, Tony puts up on YouTube. So I'm hearing the problems with education funding are all Pat's fault then. Sure. In much the same way, the Brewers' 11-game win streak has come to an end, and it's Jimmy's fault for being so involved and devoted as a Brewers fan, Tony. It's that kind of a connection.
I knew I should have posted about my kid taking into his first game 7 years to the day, trying to manifest positive energy for the George Webb Burgers. I knew it. It's all my fault.
It is. It's totally that. People saying that, the George Webb folks must be, breathing a sigh of relief. I don't think they mind. I think they got pretty good publicity either way. And, I don't know that it would have led to that much more in sales. People just were going to come get their free burger, basically.
Yeah, and I think now more people are aware of what George Webb is, I guess. It's in at least outside of the Milwaukee area, of course, because for people that didn't grow up in the Milwaukee area, George Webb is a relative unknown. When you hear the commercials on the radio broadcast, I'm like, oh, it sounds cool burger joint, but there were none in Eau Claire, so
Nope.
didn't have any context for it.
No, you really don't. And the thing is, look, everybody's got like a local burger joint or something like that, but then there are these places. Like I think Chips was one of them in central Wisconsin that, again, there's multiple locations, but only in a certain area, like a George Webb or maybe a White Castle or something like that. And for those folks, it's they're devoted. Think about the first couple of Culvers, for example. They're like, oh, that's a cute little place. Now they're a national behemoth, but at the time, it was more innocent when that first Quick Trip had opened in Eau Claire. And wasn't any place else yet.
It's sub sandwich wars in Wisconsin. You got Herbert and Gerbert's in Eau Claire in western Wisconsin. You got Cousin Subs in southern and eastern Wisconsin. It's like anything. There's definitely some regional, local favorites for things. And I think, again, just for the sake of fun, it was just fun to talk. It's like when they have the free throw shooter, and if they make the free throw or they miss 3 in a row, they get like free tacos or whatever. It's just fun. It's fun.
It really is. We'll get back to the Brewers in a second here, but with the high heat that we're expecting today, the stormy weather, I would imagine that whether it's football or other activities, either have to use a lot of extra caution or maybe just not even be held today, depending on the location.
Yeah, so here in western Wisconsin, there's a lot of cooling centers open, obviously. The Wisconsin's, utility commission has already said that, there's ways to reconnect during these heat waves and things like that. And we've got these heat advisories and heat warnings and things that are going on. I know activity-wise this week, it's the middle of July. You sort of have it in the back of your mind that in Wisconsin, things can get pretty warm pretty quickly. I've seen a lot of activity, like in our community calendars that we have on our civic media websites. We've seen a lot of people post like, hey, by the way, this event is moving to next week, or hey, this event that was outdoors is now indoors. Just me speaking as a football coach, we moved all of our practices this week to 5 a.m. We don't want to deal with the heat. And today, because of the rain, we actually had to do it inside. So, there's a lot of things with heat. As always, stay hydrated, follow all your safety tips. Find shade if you need to. Today is going to be, I think Brittany said it earlier, it's going to be the warmest day that we've got in this heat wave. So,
and adding insult to injury is having to do all this, and again, not get our George Webb burgers because the Brewers lost in Seattle yesterday, 1-0. Logan Gilbert, the pitcher for the Mariners, went 6 1/3 shutout innings, including bringing a perfect game into the 5th inning before giving up just a couple of singles. And yet there was Jacob Mizorowski, who also, was wonderful, struck out 7 in 3 2/3 innings. And yet, the Brewers hitters just could not provide any run support for him. And so we waste that pitching opportunity and we waste a win streak.
Yeah, and the Brewers started slow the night before too. They didn't get a hit until the 6th inning the night before. So it's just baseball. You have streaks like this. The win streak was great. Actually, probably the little bit of pressure that you have on having a streak like that is off. You're right now with that though. You're right in contention at the top of the division, where you were trailing by multiple games even just a month ago. Now you're right in the thick of things. So it came at a really good time. And with the Brewers going into now the trade deadline and then into August, this is where it really excuse me, I had the hiccups for a second. With the Cubs series coming up, I think that's going to be a playoff atmosphere. You've got so many chances here down the stretch where you look at some of these series and you're just like, wow, I mean, there's some great baseball coming up for the Brewers. So I look at this one, yeah, they're going to lose eventually. Can't win them all in baseball, but it was nice while it lasted.
But the trade deadline, I think, is next Thursday, the 31st.
Yep, it's next week.
Mistaken. And so for the next week, we get to go through the very Giannis-like discussions of whether the Brewers should be making moves at the trade deadline. And, one of them that I saw lately that I lump in as ridiculous, maybe you think it makes sense, is that the Brewers should trade Freddie Peralta for one more big bat. And they were, putting names around of who are some of the big hitters that the Brewers need to add to their lineup. To which I can only say, no. No.
Yeah, you don't want to get rid of fastball Freddie. Come on. No, but you see the Brewers tied to a lot of bats. I mean, I think just yesterday, I think there was some report about Eugenio Suarez. So, like, there's all these big – anybody who's available as a free agent bat is being tied to the Brewers just for that sake. But you look at their payroll, you look at what they've done historically. They've built this, with a third of the payroll of the Dodgers. I don't know that you shift from that model. The Brewers have developed well. I know that there's this big – urgency as fans. We got to go out and spend, go buy a bat, go trade for whatever. But I don't know. You're shaking up a core of a team then right now that is just rolling. And in the minor leagues, you see some of the pitching guys that are coming up there too. I mean, my goodness, Brewers are in really good shape. I know it's just good to see top to bottom the organization doing so well.
I got two words: Josh Hader. When he was traded away to San Diego, and people said, well, it's very strategic. No, it took all the wind out of people's sails.
Yeah.
It was a surprise, and it did. It rocked something there that just in the end, maybe the trade all worked out in the end in terms of X's and O's, but it was a gut punch that I don't want to experience next week.
There's not a CC Sabathia out there for the Brewers that's going to carry them over the top. There just isn't. So
exactly. Jimmy Kuska, thank you so much as always. Appreciate it.
Take care, man.
Civic Media Sports Director and school board member. He helps us. He's like a jack of all trades for us over here. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking to Earl Ingram about the latest episode of his new podcast, What's Going On, plus Melissa Baldoff and James Kelly. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, Jimmy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. Whatever you need, I'm here to help. But otherwise, enjoy your week. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Hi,
Talk
Earl.
to you later.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Hey, Earl, good to see you. We're going to talk about John Lewis today, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay. You referenced in the show description Menominee Falls, so I'm gathering we're going to talk about some recent events there as well?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then we are all good to go, so I'll be back for you.
Well, and the second thing I want to talk about is my ongoing interview with Dr. Howard Fuller. We are chronicling the history of vouchers and the origin of it.
Oh, good. Okay. Let me make a note of that before I forget. There we go. Come on. There we go. Okay. There. Sounds good. All right. Anything else you've been up to that we want to hit?
No, I think especially, well, and then there's another podcast that I'm working on, and the Negro League baseball history. The gentleman who's carrying that legacy is 90 years old. And so I'm going to be interviewing him on Friday, and we're going to talk about the history of the Negro League, what's left of it, and just some great things.
Got it. All right. No, these are great things. All right. We're in good shape. I'll see you after the news.
All right.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Hey, good morning. It is 8:06. Nice to have you back here. We are live in Madison Studio A2, along with Parker Olson, producing things here on a special day at Civic Media, where all of the hosts once or twice a year manage to lock ourselves in a room, kind of in a cage match fashion, and we'll see who comes out on the other side of it. So in terms of the programs you'll be hearing today, after we're all done here, we've got Matt Rothschild filling in for Jane and Greg for Matt and Air on Air. You've got Trygve Olson, who's going to be pinch hitting for Todd Alba today. You're going to have John and Gordy from our Madison station filling in for Maggie Dawn today. And then tomorrow will be Story Day, as we talk all about the icebreaker that we had today, and the games that we played, and the weighty matters that are discussed as well.
That'll be great. Hey, at least you're going to be in the conference room, I assume, because that'll be far bigger than our coat closet here.
Wait a minute. I came all the way down here for a host meeting, a little retreat.
Sure.
And we're just going to be in the conference room down the hall.
I have no idea.
I mean, a lot of these corporate retreats are at these nice, centers, and there's catered meals, and there's all this other stuff. And you're saying we're no different than Brittany Merlot in a rain-slogged tent somewhere in Oshkosh?
That's my guess. But hey, you might have access to pretzels with peanut butter in them.
Oh, good Lord. Brittany, do you have pretzels with peanut butter in them?
I almost bought those as a snack. That's so funny that you mentioned that. But I've got like the pretzels with the garlic on it, and the Dots pretzels. Pretzels are key.
Brittany, you're speaking my language.
Brittany, yeah. I got to say, I see you're joining us by phone here. I've been watching the rain move in on the radar toward Oshkosh, and only now, in your last report for the week, before you take some well-deserved time off, are you giving that vibe of, yeah, we're at the campground, it's day 41, the pretzels have run out. I don't even know what soap is anymore because I got hungry on day 32, and yet here you are still reporting for us from the campground at EAA Air Venture. God bless you.
Oh, thank you so much. It is a rough one. The lack of power. There's no power out here at these campsites. Only a few of them have power. So most of us, thousands of us, are relying on solar. So keeping everything charged, and the internet is so crazy too with the mass amount of people. And then you put the heat on top of that. Yeah, we're getting a little tired out here. I was talking to security earlier this morning. She's like, is it Tuesday, Wednesday? I wish it was Friday.
Time is a flat circle at this point, and you're doing it all off a diesel-powered cell phone, which is very cool.
Thank you.
However it is you're getting it done. The theme today is stormy, then hot, and then stormy again, right?
It sure is. I mean, we've got heat advisories for most of the state, especially south, from about Eau Claire to Green Bay south. We're going to see temperatures hitting into those low to mid 90s there, plus the humidity slapped on top of that. It's going to be sticky, gross, oppressive. It's going to be feeling like 100 to 104 degrees this afternoon. And now all that heat, all that humidity and stability is going to fire up some strong to severe storms. And we are looking at a slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center for northern parts of the state. And we are looking at a tornado threat north of Wausau to the Rhinelander, Hayward, even Eau Claire area as we go through this evening. I think they're going to start around 2 o'clock, very isolated at first, hail chances with that, high winds, tornadoes, and then a line builds that pushes into far northwest parts of the state around 6 and works its way through the rest as well. Now, I do think it's going to start to break up and lessen out right around central Wisconsin. I don't think we're going to get too crazy here in Oshkosh later this evening, but time will tell because of the heat and humidity. It's going to be pretty unstable. So I do think the threat will be everywhere. But again, northern parts, stay safe tonight.
Yeah, without a doubt, and keep it tuned to your local station for all the weather updates there. We've talked about the programs at AirVenture and all of the planes and the infrastructure and the food. We haven't really talked much about the people, and I'm sure there's no shortage of characters that you bump into as you're hanging out with 500,000 close personal friends.
Oh, it's amazing. Yesterday, I got to talk to this female who is an aerobatic pilot. It is her first year here at Oshkosh, and she is flying in the show this afternoon. So I got to talk to her, and she's actually one of the 4 or 5 people competing for the U.S. in the World Championships. I think it's in 2 weeks in Hungary. So she's going to be representing us in aerobatics. And speaking of aerobatics, that's the night show is tonight, and they do flips and tricks and shoot fireworks off these aerobatic planes and smoke, and it's something to see. So it was really cool to be able to talk to her, and I also talked to a NOAA person up here as well. Not many of them here, but I will say that they do weather briefings and for all of these shows and stuff that goes on. And I'm going to get to go behind the scenes and see that today, what the federal government does for these pilots before they take off for these major air shows. So that's been pretty cool. But I mean, otherwise, I mean, the history here, people have been coming here for so many years. They're so excited to be here, and you just make so many friends. Front gate security, her daughter flies 148th fighter jet, and she just loves it. She's like, I met people from, oh my gosh, Turkey, Australia, all this. She's like, now they're my friends and I camp with them. That's amazing, people.
Why do I also have a note in front of me to ask you about a yodeler?
Yes, I did not want to forget about him. Every single morning, 7 a.m., he goes. I think it's a good 3 minutes. He is yodeling throughout the grounds, the campground, everything, just to wake us up. Gates are open. Here we go. And I'm going to send you guys a clip of that later.
We'll be looking for that. And again, Brittany's taking some time off to really enjoy things, but check her out on social media, and we'll talk to you all about it come Monday morning again. Brittany, thank you very much. Have fun.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. See you later.
All right. Yep. So great to see you, and very excited for the time that she's going to have here. All right. Just about 8:13. Let's bring in Earl Ingram now, because he's got his What's Going On podcast. Lots of great things going on with that. We're going to talk about the late Congressman John Lewis in just a sec. Your ongoing discussions with Dr. Howard Fuller as well. But I'm going to start with baseball, not just because we were talking about the Brewers here, but recently were the Negro League game tributes. And I don't want to lose time for you to talk about, that part of your podcast project that you're going to be working on next, Earl.
Well, good morning. And so a gentleman named Dennis Biddle, who resides in Milwaukee, who is 90 years young, he's been the face of the Negro League over the last, I would say, 20 years. And so he's the one voice that gathers the others. There's about 25 Negro League players still around in this country. And so every year he brings as many of them who can make it to an event that I MC every year, and I MC'd it again this year. And so as we were doing this, and I got to thinking, he's 90 years old. He's a guy who really, along with Bud Selig, worked to bring pensions to Negro League players who played at Negro League baseball and then also wound up playing in the major leagues. Is a very, very fascinating gentleman, a great story. And I'm looking forward to, on this Friday, beginning a series with him. It's going to be a fantastic series. I'm sure nationally people will open their eyes to the history of what he'll be able to bring.
Oh, that'll be wonderful to see, because, again, you can see the tribute games, but it's a reminder of just what all segregation brought to this country, and the battle for desegregation and for civil rights. And it pivots very nicely to another of your most recent podcast episodes, marking 5 years since the passing of civil rights leader and former Congressman John Lewis.
I don't know if you can see it. I have on my John Lewis t-shirt.
I can, yes.
And John Lewis, for people who don't know, former Senator, United States Senator John Lewis, was a man who 5 years ago on the 16th passed. And so over 1,600 rallies across the entire nation depicting John Lewis and what was considered good trouble. He always talked about, we can talk about trouble, but if the trouble is good trouble, then it's worthy. And so over, tens of thousands of people gathered and rallied in their particular neighborhoods to say that Good Trouble didn't die with John Lewis, and if ever there was a time that this needed to take place and continue, it's now because of what's happening in this nation. And so Menominee Falls is an affluent community, and I can tell you there was hundreds and hundreds of people who were gathered as they basically wanted to let the world know that they're not happy with what took place, what is taking place. And the amazing thing about this is, Pat, I remember being at several rallies in Racine earlier this year. And the people who were at those rallies were elders, were seniors. The same thing with this. These are seniors who have decided that they're not going to remain silent in the face of what is taking place now.
Tell us a bit more about, it's not just, Menominee Falls in particular, but I mean, as somebody who 30 years ago lived in the Milwaukee area and saw firsthand the resistance to the suburbs of a more diverse and integrated community. What are some of the challenges being faced today?
Well, they haven't changed much. When you look at the fact that, Wisconsin, especially the state of Wisconsin, the black population is only 5%. And people across the state may not know that. And so they may believe that there are a lot more than 5% black in this state, but this is one of the most segregated states still in the entire nation. And black people still face a lot of discrimination and racism. It's not something people are willing to talk about, but it certainly has reared its head even more so under President Donald Trump. And so in the face of all of these different things, I know I was talking with the president of the Urban League, and they're about to make some noise about all the different things that have been taken away. They're concerned about affirmative action being jettisoned, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which was smeared and led people to believe things that really weren't true. And so there's so many different things that my generation is concerned about our grandchildren and great grandchildren and what they're going to face in the nation. We came out of a time, we're talking about John Lewis, the civil rights struggle. And so many of us lived through that as young people and fought that fight. And we're not going to be around to fight the fight for our grandchildren and great grandchildren because the clock is, anybody, a blind person could see that the clock has been turned back. And so this is the battle that we must wage. And it's good to see that people from across the nation are willing to wage that battle. Injustice is injustice. It doesn't matter where it is.
That's right. And to learn more about that, as well as the episode about the forthcoming about the Negro Leagues and the ongoing conversations with Howard Fuller about the history of the voucher program in Milwaukee, head to civicmedia.us shows and look for what's going on with Earl Ingram. Earl, appreciate it as always. Thank you so much for the updates.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. And when we come back, Melissa Baldoff will be here with our climate check live on the Civic Media Radio Network from Madison. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Back in a bit. How is Melissa? Are you there? Oh, wait, did I bring you in? I didn't. Yeah, I did.
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. Did you see, I haven't had time to text you, but you see the big Great Lakes climate change article in the Journal Sentinel?
Oh, no, I did not. Let me
Okay.
check it out.
Yeah, why don't you take a look real quick? Caitlin Luby put it together.
Oh. All right. Quite the headline. Let's see if the rest of it holds up.
Right. And actually it does. It's a very thorough review of the impact on the Great Lakes.
yeah, that's just skimming. This is great. I mean,
Let's
it's
see.
terrible, but
Yeah.
very good reporting.
Oh, this is just, and then all those headlines I sent you from the New York Times yesterday. To that, you can add today's headline. Let me get it pasted in here. EPA is said to draft a plan to end its ability to fight climate change because, of course.
Yeah,
Yikes.
why not?
Yeah, why not? Burn it all down.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just glad I was able to find a little good news in there to talk about as well. All right, 25 seconds and we will get going.
All right.
The Milwaukee Brewers 11-game win streak came to an end, losing at Seattle last night 1-0. So the next winning streak continues to build this afternoon, if we can get to 1 this afternoon. Pregame starts at 2:05 from Seattle on several civic media stations. Brewers are off tomorrow and then begin a weekend series Friday against the Florida Marlins. Melissa Baldoff joins us now to have this week's climate check, which has the usual load of depressing headlines about what the Trump administration is doing. And we will get to that. And by the way, and people go, why are you even doing it? That's so depressing. Because a record must be made of what's happening here, Melissa. It's why we do this. God knows it's not fun. It's necessary. The record needs so that people can't go, why didn't you tell us this is what Trump was going to do? Here's exactly what he said he was going to do. Here's exactly what he's doing. And so we take a little time each week for that.
Exactly. And I also just have to note, I to your point about the Brewers' next winning streak starting today, Joe and our son Jonah were very bummed to not be getting their free web burgers.
I know.
They went together in 2018 to get their free web burgers. It was a great father-son moment. So they'll look forward to getting their next free web burgers together.
There's still time. I mean, there's still 61 games out there left. Plenty of time to go get a burger.
In 2018, it was in October, so there's plenty of time.
And there, no burger tastes better than a free burger if you can get
That's
that.
right.
So along with the usual headlines, from the federal level, we have today, courtesy of Caitlin Luby at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, this headline about the Great Lakes: extreme heat, warmer water, more ticks, fewer fish. Climate change report brings grim news. It's a report that was put together by the Environmental Law and Policy Center, conducted by researchers around the Great Lakes. It's an update to a report from 2019 that examines the impact of a changing climate on the lakes themselves and the surrounding region. Now, none of this is to take, the Trump folks off the hook. Again, there's plenty that they're doing now to make things worse. But what I got out of this, Melissa, was essentially documentation that again, a changing climate has been something that's been with us for our lifetimes, but it's only now that we are truly seeing what is happening, in terms of tangible evidence around the Great Lakes. And like I said before, it is important to put that record out there for folks.
It is. And it's important to put it out there in very clear terms, the way that Caitlin did in this story. And I commend her for doing this. And we shouldn't have to commend journalists for just doing their jobs. But I feel like more and more we have to recognize people who are doing the work the way it should be done. Because, when I first saw this story, I was thinking, is this going to be watered down at all? And it's not. I directly here from the story. Let me read this quote here from the story. It says, despite the discouraging tendency these days to see everything through a political prism, the science itself is incontestable and apolitical. Climate change is caused by human activity, primarily the use of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. Period. The end. Those are the facts. So, well, it ended with like coal, oil, and gas. Now I'm opining here. That's that, right? Those are the facts.
No, it was. It was all I could do not to do a fist pump when I saw that, because there was
Right.
no squishy language there.
No
It is
squishy.
what it is.
Exactly. And that's so important to get that out there. And like you said, why we make this record, why we talk about it, why we lift up important work like this, what, the good news and the bad news, even though a lot of it's bad news, unfortunately, it's important to have these conversations, especially when we get this very clear, um, these very clear statements of fact, and make sure that people are aware of them and see them. And, I know a lot of the folks who are listening to us right now agree with us, but it's important that anyone who's listening to us, you might have people in your lives who don't necessarily, share your beliefs. And it's important for them to hear this and for them to be aware and, let them read this article, let them see the facts, and hopefully we can start bringing more people in to understand the gravity of this situation. So they will make this a top issue when they go to vote, because we know that it's not always a top issue for people. Climate isn't when they go to vote. It's people are very driven by economic issues, and climate really is an economic issue too, and that's something that's mentioned in this article as well. We need to make sure people are understanding just the gravity of the situation on climate, the way that it impacts the economy, our health, and the environment.
And of course, there are things we could be doing about it, but it gets us to the depressing headlines. This morning's headline: EPA is said to be drafting a plan to end its ability to fight climate change. It would eliminate the bedrock scientific finding that greenhouse gas emissions threaten human life by warming the planet. There's a headline that says EPA will eliminate its scientific research arm. Here's one: EPA delays requiring cleanup of toxic coal ash landfills. Here's another one: Interior Department to put wind and solar projects through a stricter political review. Thank God, Melissa, we also have from the Environmental Defense Fund two bits of good news. One about cargo ship industry agreeing to assess themselves for, fuel use, and another about how clean energy investment is booming globally. And so in the few seconds we have left, let's cling to that last one. Even with hostile governments, there's still plenty of people that want to make the investment in a cleaner planet.
Yeah, and unfortunately, our country, our leadership in this country isn't committed to doing this. But globally, we are seeing that's what leaders are doing, and it's just another area where the United States is going to be left behind the global economy and what's happening worldwide. And it's another way we are unfortunately a laughing stock because of the orange guy.
Melissa Baldoff, succinctly put. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Back after this on the Civic Media Radio Network. There, that's how you do it. It's just short.
The orange guy.
The orange guy. There.
I call him the annoying orange.
The annoying orange. I like that. Eli, even with the straightforward language about the Great Lakes, with our government, they won't believe it. You can't fix stupid. Our country makes the most pollution, and we aren't responsible enough to help fix it. There you go.
There you go.
Was that our dance remix version of the bumper music?
That was the Parker remix of "I hit the button a second too early, so I hit it a second time and restarted the music."
We have all been guilty of double punching. You know what's worse though is double punching on a camera button, TV camera or whatever.
Yeah.
When you think you've got the interview, and then you realize you double punched, and so it started and then stopped recording, and you have to go to that person and go, "Can you say it again?"
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the very first time I taped an interview with Joe Zepecki for this program, I had to call him back like 5 minutes later and say, "Joe,
I'm so
I
sorry."
clicked the mouse twice and it did not record. It started and stopped, and he was nice enough to do that. So
Yeah.
anyway, happens to us all. Stay up to date on our unabashedly Wisconsin news at Up North News by going to upnorthnewswi.com, clicking subscribe in the top banner. In today's edition, we can tell you all about the only Wisconsin high schooler invited to this year's NFL Draft Combine, all about a player who has been selected in the 4th round of the Major League Baseball draft by the New York Mets. So that's in there, along with a story about a new study that ties our state's weak gun laws to child deaths in Wisconsin. Again, all that and more over at upnorthnewswi.com. In terms of reaction to the climate news here, I like how Tony puts MAGA seems very focused on winning the 20th century again. Not so interested in winning the future or even being involved in it, really. And he's very true. To revisit some of this, and I simply was not going to subject poor Melissa to having to do, a very long, drawn out version of these headlines. But all the headlines I read to you in that last segment, they're real. And we're going to come back to them in just a bit here. But I really want to, again, like Melissa did, commend to you the Caitlin Luby article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel about this new study of the impact of a changing climate on the Great Lakes done by the Environmental Law and Policy Center. Since 1951, the average annual air temperature around the Great Lakes has increased by 3 degrees Fahrenheit. 3 degrees. That is a stunning change when you consider the cooling effect that the Great Lakes can have on a region. So if this part of the world with the Great Lakes is still warming up 3 degrees since 1951, which again, if somebody tells you, well, that's no big deal, maybe direct them to a science class. It is a very big deal. And it just tells you just how widespread this climate is. The article quotes Don Wobbles, lead author of the assessment and a professor emeritus at the University of Illinois. Climate is one of the most important issues facing humanity. We are driving changes, and now we have to figure out together what we do about it. Now, some of the takeaways make sense. More dangerous heat waves. That's understandable, and those heat waves are killing more people unnecessarily. There are more extreme rain events in the Great Lakes region since 1951. Annual total precipitation has increased by 15%. Just since between 2017 and 2024, the number of days with at least 2 inches of rain was 6% higher than the average from 1986 to 2016, and 37% higher than the period between 1901 and 1960. So from 1901 to 1960 versus the last 7 years, the number of days with at least 2 inches of rain, which could cause flash floods, is up 37%. The warmth of the air and the water has led to declining ice cover on the Great Lakes, which only perpetuates the cycle. Lake levels are rising, the water temperatures are rising, and there are vanishing fish populations. Lake whitefish in some places are on the verge of collapse, with models showing that in Lake Michigan, the prized species may disappear from some parts of the lake within 5 years. And even if commercial fishing for lake whitefish ceases, they could still face local or regional extinction. There's another part of the study that we talked about yesterday with a guest from up north, and that is about tick-borne illnesses. And it's one of those things, again, I think a lot of people don't think about, but with warmer days and longer growing seasons for some of the areas where ticks will gather and grow, then the amount of tick-borne illnesses will grow as well, increasing the risk for diseases in humans and in wildlife as well, by the way. The updated assessment, the article says, also highlights that old growth forests are still taking in a significant amount of carbon dioxide out of the air. For instance, tree ring data from 9,000 trees in northern Wisconsin show that older trees store more carbon than scientists previously thought. The fact that old growth trees store more carbon underscores why cutting them down is a serious mistake, according to Wobbles. Somebody please put this article, print it out, put it in an envelope, send it to Congressman Tom Tiffany, and stop this whole notion of cutting down our forests. And of course, this all has an economic toll that it takes on the Great Lakes as well. So that's the Great Lakes study. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, everything else that we talked about from Trump's EPA, those are all true headlines. The EPA is drafting a plan to end its ability to fight climate change. It will eliminate its scientific research arm at the Environmental Protection Agency. It is delaying required cleanups of toxic coal ash landfills. And it is going to put wind and solar projects through a stricter political review, creating new delays and bottlenecks for renewable energy projects. This is all cartoon villain stuff. This is Bond movie super villain stuff that you would have thought all these years was never going to be possible in the real world. And here we are in the real world, and it is exactly what we're living through right now. Is this belief that anything that oil and coal want to do should be encouraged, that clean energy industries and the jobs that they create should be shut down, and on it goes. Here's another extension of it. Selena Heller works on not just stories for Up North News, but for other courier newsroom sites around the country. And one of the articles that she just finished was one out of Texas and talks about the Trump administration cuts into funding for the viruses that are transmitted by mosquitoes. Texas has seen hundreds of cases of West Nile virus in recent years, some of them resulting in deaths. West Nile is transmitted by mosquitoes. But as Selena writes, the administration has swatted research. I see what she did there. The administration has swatted research grants from the National Institutes of Health. The Galveston National Laboratory, as a result, has lost nearly $20 million so far. The research facility is on the campus of the University of Texas Medical Branch. It focuses on infectious disease research, and it is losing highly trained researchers while also seeing next generation researchers go into other careers. And there's more. Veterans in Texas are losing their careers because of the Trump administration. Nearly 900,000 civilian federal employees are either veterans, spouses of veterans, or spouses of active military, representing 30% of the entire federal government workforce. So federal government employees are disproportionately likely to be veterans due to federal government hiring preferences in the past. And Texas has more veterans than any other state. But between the top 5 states for employing veterans, some 50,000 employed veterans or spouses could be affected. William Addig of the Union Veterans Council calls it the largest attack on veteran employment in our lifetime. Again, just cartoon villain stuff that we could see. So you may ask, what is it that the Trump administration is doing that is proactive? What is some good news that we can hang our hats on, Parker? What can I point to and say to you, here is something that is proactive? I believe I have found it.
Really?
Right here. Yes.
No.
Yeah. Republicans on the House Appropriations Committee voted on Tuesday to rename the Opera House at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., rename it for First Lady Melania Trump.
Oh, thank God. I was so worried about that. Oh, all is right in the world now.
It was all part of amendments to a package of bills that fund the U.S. Interior Department and the Environmental Protection Agency. The same one where I told you they're eliminating the scientific research arm. But the bill funding that agency includes language to designate at the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts the First Lady Melania Trump Opera House.
Okay.
Other
than that,
what
has she done?
Well, let's see. There is somebody here.
I don't know if she's done anything like I don't know, Michelle Obama did with like child lunches at schools.
Let's see. Subcommittee Chair Mike Simpson, an Idaho Republican, said the name change was, quote, an excellent way to recognize the First Lady's support and commitment to promoting the arts.
Oh.
He said, yes, we renamed the Opera House at the Kennedy Center for the First Lady, who is the honorary chair of the Board of Trustees of the Kennedy Center. You will recall that President Trump removed several members of the Kennedy Center board in February, replacing them with loyalists who then elected him chairman of the board.
I did see that.
He also fired the Cultural Center's president and replaced her on an interim basis with a gentleman who has held several roles over Trump's two presidencies so far. So it was all part of a bill that proposes about $38 billion for all the agencies covered by the measure, which is an overall spending cut of 6% compared to current levels. And that mainly comes from chopping the Environmental Protection Agency's budget a whopping 23%. And then there's all kinds of arts and culture funding that is in there as well. And if I'm laughing, it's again because it is. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up.
No, I have a word that I would like to describe it with, but I can't put it on the air.
No, you cannot. No,
yeah.
no. Let's end with a little TV news here. I was looking at an article about here are the 30 best shows to be watching on Netflix this month. And as usual, I kind of go through it and go, haven't seen it, don't want to see it. But I did get talked into after seeing the preview for it. I said, oh, okay, let's watch this one. Have you seen one called Nona's with Vince Vaughn?
Nona's?
Where
no.
Vince Vaughn plays somebody who wants to open up a restaurant on Long Island and do it with Nona's, grandmas, Italian grandmas.
Cool.
It stars Susan Sarandon, Lorraine Bracco, Brenda Vaccaro, Talia Shire, and it's adorable. And it includes a secret recipe, and the folks at All Recipes did an extreme close-up on the recipe card and found the famous Nona's Sunday spaghetti sauce recipe.
Yeah.
And now they're sharing what all is in it, so you too can make things a little bit better. That includes a little bit of like apple cider.
Oh,
that is a part of it.
Okay,
a special can. You gotta make the apple cider fresh.
Try that out for us. Tell me how it goes.
I might. I'll let you know. Some of you are getting a local update. The rest, some final news and notes here from Madison coming up on the Civic Media Radio Network. Once again, a reminder that the Milwaukee Brewers and the Seattle Mariners will wrap up their series this afternoon, and you can catch that game on several Civic Media stations. Just head over to civicmedia.us to learn more. The pregame show will begin at 2:05 this afternoon, off tomorrow, and then a homestand will begin on Friday. This is now the part of the program where I turn things over to Parker Olson, and Parker will now tell us everything that you need to know about cryptocurrency. Parker, take it away.
Yes, Pat. So what you do is, I think there's these things that you can put money into somehow, and you make more money off of something that doesn't exist.
There again was our crypto focus with Parker Olson. No,
Thank you.
The reason I bring that up is because most folks don't know much about crypto, and the ones who do won't stop talking about it. And somewhere in the middle, there's both the truth, but also an illustration of the need for better regulation and guardrails for consumers, for financial institutions, for the entire American economy. And last week was designated as Crypto Week in the U.S. Congress as they worked on legislation that was said to be giving crypto some of the credibility that it was looking for, at least in some forms. Something called stablecoin, which is a type of cryptocurrency that is pegged to something tangible like the US dollar. Although, I mean, I have questions about that. I mean, if you're pegging a cryptocurrency to the dollar, what's the value of the cryptocurrency? And how do you really know that it's backed by a dollar if it's not being regulated by something like the FDIC, the Federal Depository Insurance Company? Well, at the state level, obviously, that's where our legislators come in and have the ability to at least protect consumers in their state. Well, they could do that. They could either protect consumers, protect the economy, or in any given state, they can race to the bottom. You know, that's part of the beauty of this country being made up of 50 states instead of just one central government all the time, is that sometimes you have states that will try to have the strongest, toughest laws on something, and in others they will race to the bottom to say, well, we're encouraging business and we're lowering taxes, and by the way, we're also polluting our rivers and not educating our children. So it's up to each state legislature to decide in what direction it wants to go. And fortunately, here in Wisconsin, State Senator Kelda Royce and State Representative Ryan Spouty have worked on a bill that would regulate at least some of the use of cryptocurrency. It has, in fact, something, part of it has to do with, the ATMs or the ATM like boxes that you're seeing out there that say, right here, you can invest in cryptocurrency. Well, I mean, can you? Or is it just basically, is that fancy looking ATM box really nothing more than a good looking rat hole to send your money down? And so tomorrow on the program, we're going to talk to the two legislators about that and get their take on, why legislation like this is needed at the state level. So that'll be at 7:30 tomorrow morning. We'll also talk to Sharita Booker about some of the things that you can see and do around Wisconsin. She always brings up various, music events and other community gatherings. And then I like to add all of the, county fairs and things that are out there. And this week, there's a lot of them. Opening up today, some have already opened, but today, at least all of these county fairs are open through Sunday. They include the Columbia County Fair in Portage, the Dunn County Fair in Menominee, the Eau Claire County Fair in Eau Claire, the Monroe County Fair in Toma, the Racine County Fair in Union Grove, the Rock County 4-H Fair in Janesville, and the Washington County Fair in West Bend. And then tomorrow, a few more open up for the rest of the weekend. They include the Langlade County Fair in Anago, the Polk County Fair in St. Croix Falls, the Taylor County Fair in Medford, and the Washburn County Fair in Spooner. And so a lot of great things that you can go to. But as I go through this list, Parker, it reminds me there's a list I've always been meaning to put together. And maybe somebody else has already done this, but I have not seen the definitive list of place names that are not in the county that they share a name with. For example, the Columbia County Fair, as I said, was in Portage. which means Portage is not in Portage County. The Polk County Fair is in
Oh.
St. Croix Falls. St. Croix Falls is not in St. Croix County.
Oh, I hate that.
There's,
Yes,
there's actually quite a few like that, and I always keep meaning to put together the definitive list of places that like somehow got evicted from their original counties, which I know is just a nice coincidence, but we always joke about Wisconsin place names. There are a lot of Wisconsin place names that are hard to pronounce, but equally difficult for beginning reporters in Wisconsin is when you're covering something in, like Tony notes here, you're covering something in Washburn, but Washburn is not in Washburn County. And there have been times when I've taken a script, a news story that somebody's turned in. I'm like, oh no, that I know that sounds like it would make sense.
Yeah,
but
you
it
should be
doesn't.
right.
Yes, yep. And then there are the similarities of places like River Falls and Black River Falls and all of that. There's a lot to learn about Wisconsin, and we can and should be celebrating more of that for educational purposes, of nothing else, to save you some of the embarrassment.
I would like to see that list, because I actually didn't know about most of those.
Yeah, and there are several more, so we'll explore those together one of these times. But in the meantime, at least what we can have you do is know about the county fairs that are going on in these places, and then, as I noted, Sharita Booker will tell us about some of the other fun things going on around Wisconsin. We will also be talking to somebody from the Wisconsin Public Education Network about the summer summit that is taking place tomorrow in Green Bay. And by the way, Todd Alba is bringing his show up to Green Bay tomorrow afternoon, and he will be broadcasting live from the Public Education Network Summer Summit. So look for all of that coming up tomorrow and throughout the course of the weekend. All right, my thanks to everybody who has taken part in today's festivities, all of our guests, and we look forward to having you back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. here up north on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Have a great day.